Well, today, Cathy McKenna is going to interview me, and we'll go back and forth it a little bit, but it's the story of me growing up in the country area, and the story of my mother, the story of me going to university, and then becoming an expert in no-tillage agriculture. So I got the name No-Till Bill towards the end of this segment that you're going to watch today, so I hope you enjoy.
G'day, Bill.
G'day, Cathy. Good to be back.
Isn't it great? Look, we've decided to do this a number of podcasts for farmers, but it's about agriculture, specifically in WA, but more generally, covering topics around the world. But I want to have a chat to you, first of all, about why you got into agriculture. I think you need to sort of explain that a bit more.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, as a little kid, I sort of grew up on the farm, one of 10 children. Mother used to milk the cows, and she used to carry me while I was the second last child, the youngest boy,
Right.
and 5 boys, 5 girls. And by the time it got to me, there wasn't much room on the farm.
No.
So
You would
because
have been left with the least impressive.
I was smart, though, I had to go to uni.
You were deemed to be smart. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, I was one of the first, I'm not sure exactly, to go to uni, along with a couple of my other friends, did nursing in my cohort in 1975 at Jerramungup Junior High School, Year 10.
Really?
Yeah, so we lived on the farm until grade 1, and I failed grade 1, and because I couldn't get out of bed very early, I struggled to get out of bed at 6 o'clock or something as a little kid. My mum used to put me in the bath to try and wake me up.
Oh,
So on top of all the cutting the lunches for the other,
everyone.
well, 2 kids had gone to Albany by now. They were the older 2. They were 14 years older than me. So they were at in Albany at school. But, the rest of us used to get on the bus, and by the time Mr. Ganser would come and pick us up, we'd, there'd always be a yell at the front door of our house, "The bus is at the corner!" And that was about, a mile away, so you had to run about 300 metres to get to the... And one day, Mr. Gans, he was very patient. The oldest kid would get on, then the next, then the next, then the next, then the next, and then me. One time, I got halfway down, and he thought, "I'll blow this," so he took off.
He really?
I can't wait 5 minutes for the Crabtrees to get on the bus. So it was one of those old school buses, those old orange, Austin school bus, probably 1960 something.
Gosh, yeah.
It was 66. So, so we decided it was too hard. So Mum said, well, let's move to town. So we moved to Jerramungup, and we became good friends with the Gray family. The Grays were Aboriginals.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and their mum had escaped the White Australia policy for some reason, and so we became good friends with them in the 60s and 70s. And but I always used to go back to the farm on the weekends and on school holidays, and I'd I was pretty keen for some reason. I just loved agriculture. Yeah, I'd get on a tractor, and first time I jumped on a tractor, there was a chain underneath the clutch, and I was about 11, and I went to put my foot on the clutch to stop it going through the gate, and there was a chain under it, and I couldn't put my foot down on the clutch, so it went straight through the gate, destroyed the gate. So I learnt pretty quick, you can't mess around with these big tractors, you've got to be careful. And then a friend used to come and visit me, Glenn Miles, and he'd say, "Oh, it's boring visiting you on the weekend, you just want to do farm work." So, when I went to Glenn's place, we rode motorbikes fast.
Oh, that's the other activity, isn't it, for farm kids?
Yeah, it'd shoot guns, and So anyway, so I had this experience. I said on the last podcast that when I was 12, I saw wind erosion. I thought, this is terrible, and I was contributing to that because I used to be on the tractor. And I remember at the age of probably 13, I did night shifts from 8 at night when my brother went to bed. He was 7 years older than me, so. And then I would get up and get on the tractor from 8 till about 3 when he'd come out and take over.
Wow.
So, and I was a bit of a night owl anyway. Of course, couldn't wake up in the morning, but it was a funny way it was. And so that was good. And I remember being on there on a July day ploughing the soils, because we ploughed it once and you got to plough it again. Tractor had no lights, had no cab, and I had no gloves on this occasion. I was freezing. And I always used to enjoy going into the wind because the heat off the manifold would blow into my face along with all the fumes, and I'd suck it all up.
Yeah.
And I used to have this technique, had an old-fashioned watch that you could push the thing and the lights would shine on your watch. And
Flash.
I'd work out how long it was going to take me to finish the paddock. I'd count. It took 11 seconds quicker that time, so another 11 seconds, and now we're up to 10 minutes, 20 seconds, so it's going to take me... So I do all the maths in my head, so I enjoyed that.
Oh, that's... You farmers are funny people.
And then one night, we had no lights this time, but it was a full moon, so that was okay. So I had to line the plough up or the tractor with that line could see with the moon, and with no lights.
You can see a lot though on a full moon.
You can, especially when your eyes get used to it.
Yes, you
yeah.
can. Yeah.
So in my own little world, I enjoyed that, and so then when I got to, I went to Willagee Senior High where my sister was living there.
Right.
So I boarded with her in a caravan, and so I did maths 2, 3, physics, chem, English and geology, I think. And I enjoyed maths, and I was top of my class at Jerramunga for 1 year. But then I was right in the middle of the pack when I went to Melville Senior High. And so I thought, what am I going to do? I thought, well, maybe I'll do computing. That's the big thing, 1978 TAE.
Teaching, yeah.
I'm going to do computing at UWA. And then I put that number 1, and then I had agriculture number 2. And then I went away on the school holidays. I think I went and worked on the wheat bins. Right. And while I was there, I thought, no, I don't want to do computing. I'm not that much a numbers person. I love agriculture, so I thought I'd do agriculture. But then, of course, you couldn't just change your course. You had to wait a year and renominate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I had to nominate. So I was a bit older. Failed grade 1, and then I was a couple of years older than most of them.
That's why you're so much older than me.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I'm not so much older. A couple of years. Yeah, so...
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, so... And then I did that farm jobs in that year that it was taking off, and I went over to went to Tasmania, rode a motorbike, and drove a Ducati around Tasmania really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was quite exciting and dangerous. Everyone that I went with, all 4 of us, they all fell off their bikes, but fortunately I didn't fall. I was very cautious. I went into the police station the day before we were going to go. I had just bought my motorbike and 650 Cracker Twin, and the policeman said, yeah, just ride around the block. So I rode a motorbike, rode around the block. So I got this motorbike license. It was a week before they changed the rules. You had to get a small license first, 250cc, and then you could get a bigger one after a year or 2. And so I just went straight for the big one. But I was going across the Nullarbor. I didn't know how to ride a motorbike, and I'd ridden trail bikes before, but they're a bit different. You've got this big bike, and the funny thing is, for those that have never ridden a bike, if you want to go right, you have to actually push your right arm away so that the bike falls to your right, and the centre of gravity takes you around the corner. So
I did not know that.
No, and I didn't either. I could, a little trail bike going at 10, 20 kilometres up and down hills, you just turn the wheel and, it's very different to a road bike. Yeah. So then when I came back, I enrolled in agriculture, and then I did an honours project I love soil science. Second year, I just really, for some reason, my brain clicked with water in the soil, the size of the particles. There's these... I remember Professor Bob Jukes talking about clay, a teaspoon of clay, you spread the surface area out of that, and it's the size of this whole university, something like that. And then a teaspoon of silt is just the size of the football oval, and a teaspoon of sand, the surface area is only the size of this little room.
He was a powerful lecturer.
Yeah, and he said, so think of the chemistry involved in that. If you've got a surface area the size of the whole UWA campus, for the same amount of soil as just the size of this room, so then I understood, of course, the electric conductivity a bit, and the magnetic or the ability of the soil to hold on to water and all of that. And so, I remember Don McFarlane being my lecturer in my lab. Don was a recent graduate. He's doing his PhD, I think. Really lovely scientist based in Albany for a while, Underwater Work Authority, and Joe McFarlane, his wife. Or Joe Wood, I think she was. And so, got lovely memories of university lecturers and some really good people. I really loved Alan Robson's clarity. He was Vice-Chancellor at UWA until he died only last year. But Alan was a world authority on trace elements. Yeah. And interestingly, my dad, I told you about Henry Schapper before, but in the last podcast. But my dad went. He was given a war service farm in Pemberton,
Yeah.
and at Pemberton you had to, it was potato and cattle dairy, but his cows were dying, and they couldn't work out why. And because he went to Dookie Ag, he had an interest in trace elements.
Yeah.
So selenium, molybdenum, copper, zinc, all of that. But I think it was selenium that was the problem. The cows were very healthy. The grass was good with clover and ryegrass, and it was good food for the cows, but they were dying.
Yeah, we're just missing something.
They were lacking, molybdenum.
Wow.
So, or selenium, sorry. But that was in 1947, 48. And then the Ag Department, when I was doing some study, I read all the old history of the soils of Western Australia. Of course, for those that don't know, West Australia is just a beach, really, largely, except for where we farmed up in the more loamy soils. But 3/4 of WA is very sandy soils with between 1% and 4% clay in it, and that lack of clay means lack of glue to hold nutrients, and so it doesn't hold anything.
Yeah.
And then I did my honours. My dad. So what my dad learnt was, because of that, it was a real tough experience, and he appealed to the War Service Land Settlement, and they decided to give him another farm. So we had another go. So we moved to Jerramungup, or Gardner, 7 miles south of the town of Gardner, or the school of Gardner, and in December 1960, and I was born in October 1960, so I was 2 months old when we went there. And that was an amazing time of agriculture because the land was brand new. There's a really fantastic video, Farms in the Making, 1959. Right. It's a 20-minute YouTube video that people could watch.
Farms in the Making.
Yeah. Right. And it's about the government scheme to how we're going to open up this land. And I remember Rex Edmondson always said 1 million acres a year is what he opened up in the southwest. But it all came down to trace elements.
Is that right? Without trace elements?
It was impossible.
Wow.
And it was that sort of discovery that my dad was sort of part of involved, or he was complaining to the Ag Department and talking to them.
Yeah.
And the Ag Department then, and Alan Robson and Lonergan before him, another professor at Murdoch University, or UWA originally, I think.
Yeah.
And he went over to Murdoch. Jack Lonergan did a lot of work on response curves and how much of these trace elements we need and which ones do we need, how many are there? And when they discovered copper, the phone lines at Pemberton would have green grass underneath the phone lines.
Really? Underneath the telephone lines?
Bigger than everything else around it when the cattle hadn't been in for a while.
And the phone lines were made of?
Copper. Yeah.
There you go.
And so then it made the question about zinc and selenium and molybdenum for nodules with clover, because clover, of course, is a legume, subterranean clover, trifolium subterranean.
That's right.
Remember your university?
I do.
And so then Alan Robson did a lot of work with Kevin Snowball, and they produced a few books about getting every other nutrient just fine, but missing out on this one. And what are the classic symptoms of clover, wheat, and whatever, lupins?
I remember that book.
Yeah, I've got those 3 books.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's in real life, it's not like that because it's often 2 or 3.
It's combinations.
Yeah, and a good friend of mine, Wayne Smith, became very knowledgeable about picking up how to see 2 or 3 symptoms, not just one. And Wayne used to do a course called Learning Plant Language, and he's still got a bit on the web, probably agronomy.com.au.
Yeah.
Wayne's sort of retired now, but I still would like to talk to him.
Wayne would be a great person to talk to. I remember him at uni, because he and I finished uni at the same time, and he gave me his pot of wheat. And what he was trying to do was grow as many grains as possible out of that pot. And he had all these lined up, man. So he gave me a pot, which I put underneath the clothesline. It was really lovely. And he was all about driving production.
Yeah.
How much can we produce?
Yeah.
So he'd be a great person to.
Yeah, Wayne's visionary, and he and I partnered up really well. Wayne was just loving to think right outside the box, and that sent some farmers crazy at some meetings. So I know I've got a good friend who said, Wayne said I should be growing 7 tonne and I only got 12 inches of rain. Or something like that. Daniel Morgan,
Oh, yes.
Geranium, South Australia, lovely guy, cerebral palsy. Daniel's great guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he rang me up once. Said, that Wayne Smith drives me crazy. I said, yeah, we probably shouldn't have him in a meeting without me because we work together really well. Yeah, I use Wayne's visionary stuff to sort of channel it into really solid stuff and say, okay, this is really super solid ground.
Yeah.
Go there if you're worried about what Wayne's saying, but the rest of you that are 1%ers, well, listen to what Wayne's saying.
Listen, no, and he's just amazing. But the interesting thing is, like yourself with your view on soil structure and so forth, and Wayne with his using water and everything, they were ideas that were not traditionally accepted at the time. They were way outside, but you fought for them. You got them out there, and you've done a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, Wayne had a classic saying. When we were talking together, we were both in Department of Agriculture or DPIRD back in the mid-'80s, and Wayne would put up this slide because he had a project for high wheat production under Dr. Wal Anderson, another great mentor in agriculture in Western Australia. And Wayne would put this picture of a turtle up and he'd say, without sticking your neck out, you're not going to make any progress because a turtle only walks when it sticks its neck out. So Wayne would stick his neck out. And we made progress.
You did. Yes. And, I look at what agriculture, and certainly in WA, can grow on minimal rainfall these days, with the trace elements that we talked about, and no-till, and fertilisation and so forth, and soil amelioration. And we're growing huge crops on what you would never even have covered the ground with before.
Yeah.
We've just become so resilient. And it's just tremendous. There are so many interesting stories out there, aren't there?
Yeah. Well, this story is a revolution, really, and it was really exciting to be a part of it. I remember one of the problems was, you might remember in 1988, 89, we had the wool crash.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we used to ride on the sheep's back in the 50. It was a pound for a pound, which a UK pound. We used to have a pound in 1965 till we changed to Australian dollar. And a pound was a lot of money for a pound of wool.
Yes.
Huge back then, massive. So Australia was really reliant. And this, just going back, we rode on the sheep's back in the 50s, but we weren't using the sand plain soil because we couldn't, because of copper and zinc. So once we started putting super copper zinc moly out, super phosphate is 9% phosphorus and about 12% sulfur, I think, or 11, something like that. Anyway, so sulfur is also important. NPK, then S. S is there. So we had soils that had some potassium in them, but not a lot. I did an honours project in 83 on the effect of cultivation on soil fertility. And what I did was I grabbed soil that we'd been farming for a long time, right since 1960, and then soil we'd farmed since 70, and then since, So I had a 25, 15, 11, 8, 3, 0 soil. And I compared it chemically, physically, biologically.
Yeah.
And what I found was that in our sandy soil, there's just virtually nothing there.
No.
And that's why north of Perth, those sandy soils, they can't, in 550 mil rainfall, they can hardly grow trees bigger than this because they've just got no nutrients in that soil. But once a farmer comes along, throws his nutrients out, then you've got all these big tree lines going down the driveway. And, of course, the trees are now, 60 foot high, 20 metres high, growing very well. So even though the soil's not great, it is sandy to some depth in places there, which is tough. Yeah. But, so this... So this trace element story was really pivotal to that opening up of all of this land, and then Esperance opened up, and then Pop and Nan Cottle Pop and Nan Kettle was their names, believe it or not. They brought in a Bettinson disc drill in. Kevin Bly used to tell me, I think it was 1972 or something, after bad erosion. So he brought one in, and it was just double disc with no press wheel.
Right.
And he was able to get the crop up, but had weeds.
Yeah.
And without erosion. So then the next year, John Liberta just passed away last year, but his son Peter might be listening. But he got also a Bettinson disc off the cotton, the kettles.
The kettles.
And they then had this experience of being, useful, but not brilliant, and controlling weeds was difficult. And so then a group called ICI, which was being bought out by Rowan Palonk, I think, a big chemical company, had spray seed or paraquat diquat mixes.
Yeah.
And so the ag department was then fiddling around with all of these. But I after my honours project, I then got a job at Jerramunga, my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And I used to play footy with my local Boxwood Hill team. And so I was, mates with my local friends, and I kept them all through university. We used to go down every school holidays and play footy with them and have weekends together and drive cars and, and they would drink beer.
Yeah.
And I used to win around the track mostly because I didn't drink and they were drinking. And I told you that before I decided not to drink because my dad was an alcoholic. So anyway, we had a lot of fun. And but I'd come back with a bit of university knowledge now. I understood soils a bit. I understood the importance of chemicals.
Yes.
People hate chemicals, and that's what this podcast will address a little bit, carefully, thoughtfully, hopefully, so that we'll take people along with us on the journey. I use chemicals, coffee, toothpaste,
yes,
underarm deodorant, shampoo. A lot of these chemicals people don't know. They're actually more toxic than the chemicals we use in agriculture. A lot of them, not all of them. So obviously it's and then when I went back there, I also had to, hold the hand, if you like, or introduce these chemicals to my mates. And because they knew me and trusted me a bit and I'd tell them what I knew, they sort of believed it,
right,
as opposed to just a scientist, because back in those days, the science people were put up a little bit of a pedestal in a way. And so I had to, fight that a little bit in myself, because we do think, oh, yeah, I'm good now. I remember a university professor in maths saying, you're the cream of the crop, you're the top of the bunch, you're the top 1%, you're fantastic, you're going to save the world. Then I'd go back and interact with my mates. And they'd say, Bill, that's stupid. I'd say, yeah, it is, isn't it? When I make a comment about something, So they pull you down. It's a bit like, pull you down, pull you into line.
Yeah.
Because they care for you. A bit like, our spouses, they pull us into line when they need to because they care for us. So as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Yeah, so
lovely. Yeah, but it's interesting your topic, your comments about chemicals in agriculture, because we always think about the chemicals that we use as in herbicides that we spray out, but you've touched on all of the fertilizers, which are also made up of chemicals. And no one objects to using chemicals. You're much
fertilizers. Yeah.
Fertilizer all the time.
Yeah, and that's what made West Australia famous, was our lack of fertilizer.
Yeah.
So there was so much knowledge that we could learn from not having these fertilizers because we had a starting base of almost nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. Potassium, almost nothing in sandy soils. Sulfur, virtually nothing. Organic matter, or organic
almost
carbon,
nothing.
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Phosphorus, nothing. And then, of course, the trace elements. Not that you need much of them, but you do need.
Need a bit.
I read the other day to remind myself. You want me to do a quiz on you?
Oh, I don't.
How much copper is there in a ton of wheat that you export?
Oh, I read it the other day too, and I can't remember because
30 grams.
30 grams.
Yeah.
30 grams, 30 kilos.
30 grams.
In a ton.
In a ton of wheat.
Really?
So it's not that much. It's like 4 teaspoons.
But you need it.
But you need it. Yeah.
Because copper's really important for
enzymes, all sorts of reactions.
At what point of the growing cycle of the
it's needed, particularly at flowering.
Flowering, yes.
Yeah.
You
and
need it
zinc's needed for tillering and elongation.
Yeah.
And so there's and this is really good fun for people that have gardens at their homes. In Western Australia, we see a fair few, and of course, organic material's wonderful, and that's what you can use in the city. You can buy sort of organic material, but there's only 2 farmers in Western Australia that take all the poo. That's not a good word to use on a microphone. All the feces from Western Australia, Perth, goes to 2 farmers. Owen Cocking's one of them.
Really?
Mate of mine here north of Perth, a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And another guy. And Owen comes on my study tours. Monique and I always take study tours around the world, farmers to look all over the world.
Yes.
So I've seen a lot of the world. And Owen would get up there on the microphone and he says, I got 2 million arseholes fertilising my farm. But the funny thing about that is it doesn't. It's not enough.
No,
It's not enough for his one farm or two farms.
really.
He has to complement it with other things.
So,
Because you think about it, you think organic matter, oh, that's really healthy, that's good, that's what we want to put on the soil. But if you think
Gosh.
about what is the purpose of organic material like fruit, what's the purpose of it? You eat it, and what's it do for you?
you take bits and pieces out and
Yeah,
get rid of the rest.
you get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
And what's the rest? It's just the leftovers, right?
Yes.
So you're taking most of the goodness out, and people don't realise that. They think poo is really fertile.
Yeah,
It's not.
It's not.
No, because you've extracted all the good stuff, or a lot of the good stuff out of it.
Yeah.
What you haven't got is not much. What's left. So so to try and do organic farming in Western Australia is really difficult because our soils are really infertile. And I would often ask the question of farmers, because they're not supposed to put fertiliser on because it's seen as synthetic. But you can put rock phosphate on, but rock phosphate does not dissolve because it's alkaline unless your soil is super acidic. And if your soil's super acidic, then it will dissolve, but you've got other issues. Your production's down probably by 40-60%, so you're not making money until you can then put rock phosphate on, then it will dissolve. But then that's not potassium either. So there are rules that you can use certain types of rocks in certain, in organic farming, but really, what's so evil about having a super phosphate or bird poo, guana poo, mixed with a bit of sulfuric acid to make it soluble so that it dissolves in the soil, releases the phosphorus, and your plants can then take it up.
It's just alchemy, isn't it? It's alchemy. You've got to be careful.
Yeah.
So after these bits, let's go back to your original thing. When you were after uni, you went to the ag department.
Yes.
Tell us about that. What was it like?
It was good. But I found that the farmers weren't listening to me very much because I was a teetotaler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then one day I thought, I've got to have a beer. So I'd have a beer, and then they'd all start talking to me. This is a Jerramungup as opposed to Boxwood. They got used to me down there, but in Jerramungup, the ag department was more around that, a bit further north. And so we'd have events, and I learnt so much from farmers. I developed a bit of a trick. I'd say, let's talk about your seeding program. Let's get all the neighbours in the area. So we'd have 10 farmers sitting around and say, when do you plant your wheat crop? And 2nd of May. 2nd of May, it's a bit early, isn't it? You might get frost, and everyone would chip in, and they'd all say, I don't plant mine till the 1st of June because I'm in a valley. Frost is worse where I am.
Yeah. And
then I'd say, okay, what machinery do you use? So we'd sort of talk about it and talk, what fertiliser do you use? And, so I was asking them questions with a bit of knowledge that I'd picked up.
Yeah.
And then I had this project. So I learned a lot from farmers just asking questions and having them have a little discussion or a little argument.
Yeah.
And when I could chip in with my science knowledge, I'd chip in. And that grew. And every year we had about 12 of these in the ag department. I went for 3 years, and it was fantastic. I really appreciate what the farmers taught me. And Alan Robson said, farmers aren't always right about their interpretations, but their observations are very good usually.
And that is so true. You trust the observation, you might not trust the interpretation.
Yeah, and and that's the same for scientists too.
Yeah, well, because you can get
biased.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the case with this tillage thing because the ag department became very biased towards tillage. My boss was a tillage research officer, and I was a no-tillage research officer.
And he was your boss. You were doomed.
We were doomed to collide. And one day he said at Wellstead, in 1992, I think it was, and Wayne Smith was there, and Alan Robson was there, and Alan Robson's mentor, David Smith, head of ag department in Victoria in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
I met him at the Uniting Church thing, and I said, come and join me. I'm going to see Alan. He said, oh, great, yeah, I'd like to see Alan again. So that event there with about 120 farmers or 80 farmers, can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were talking about no tillage, and Ron Jarvis said, oh, this is all bullshit. Ron would look back now. G'day, Ron. In his retirement years. He'd remember this, I think. He said, no, till's bad idea. It's not going to work. We tried it in the 70s. It doesn't work. You know, it's all these nice flash machines you got. They'll be parked behind a shed under a tree, all going rusty in 2 years' time. And as a young little fella with a few little horns, I stepped forward with the courage of my local football community and Wayne Smith there beside me and David Smith and Alan Robson. I stepped forward and I said, that's where you're wrong, Ron.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting how, because I can remember being in a lecture with Alan Robson, who informed us all that plants do not absorb nutrients through their leaves, because that was the science at the time. And every year, science changes, our knowledge changes, and it's so important to be willing to listen to new research and take it up.
Yeah.
You know, because Alan Robson now would have been very happy to admit that plants absorb nutrients through their leaves.
Absolutely.
But at that time in the early 80s, no.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. So we've got to keep challenging things.
Constantly have to keep challenging.
Yeah. And of course, so and that's the purpose of this podcast.
Yes.
Is to try and bring out some of those things that people might not be aware of. And I would like to interview a whole heap of my mates that are still, young enough that I've seen their journey and I've respected them. And so we've got a series there of topics that we'll tackle. Cathy.
You've got a number of great names there. People who are excellent communicators, because you are also an excellent communicator. Your science communication is top notch, and you changed how the ag department integrated with farmers, and how, that you adopted a different model, and Watford was huge because of how you did it. So these sorts of interviews should be tremendous. Actually, I'll just pick it up.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me of something. We had a New South Wales agronomist come over and he says, I've spent 2 days with you, Bill, and you do it differently. It's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, that's, it's not for everyone. It's difficult, but if you've got nothing to hide, then why not? And, often I'd find, I remember a farmer down at Katanning, we're talking about sodic soils and how they're really hard. And, a press wheel's going to cause the soil to compact and then you're not going to get the wheat up out of the ground. And one of the farmers, John Hicks, was there and he was a bit crook at the time and he was actually lying down on the ground and we're out in the field because he had a hip problem, I think, at the time.
Oh, poor fellow.
And, someone said, oh, Bill, do you think press wheels are going to destroy, the ability of the crop to come up? This is so new, Tom. So new. And I said, well, I don't think so. They do it in Queensland but I don't know for sure. I haven't done any trials. And then Bob says, he says, I don't think they will. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, John Hicks, sorry. And John says, well, here we are in May and the sun is very low down on the horizon. Every morning we get a dew. So I don't think in the bottom of a furrow that the wind and the humidity and the coolness and the lack of sunlight will probably dry that out very often. And I said, I think you're probably right. So I said, anyone experienced that? And then 10 hands went up, said, yeah, we've had press wheels and that sort of situation, and we think it would have dried out, and it didn't.
Wow.
So then all of a sudden, 100 people have now got that knowledge.
Yeah.
It was just an observation, a thought, and it springboarded to what's your experience. And that would happen regularly at every meeting. Someone had asked me a question. I was ready to bring out the bullshit line. The university, under some conditions, in certain circumstances, there's a probability, saying absolutely nothing. And I started to do that once or twice, and I thought, no, that's useless. That's not going to destroy the meeting.
Yeah.
So instead I do it the opposite, say, I don't have a damn clue. And then I'd stand there like this, a bit like kangaroo with his eyes in the spotlight. And then someone would see me stumped and say, Bill, I've got an idea. Or sometimes I'd ask for the idea. Once it started to happen, it happened more and more. And then it just snowballed. It was like, a snowball of knowledge just growing and growing and growing. And then I'd take that knowledge to the next meeting. And then we'd get to another harder issue, and then that knowledge would grow and grow. And then before you knew it, she was all over Red Rover.
Yeah,
and that's
so quickly.
So quickly. And there was Necessity is the mother of invention, they say. And I was going to say before about the sheep crash, wool industry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Where is that?
and so what happened then was the clover was also in 1969. The clover struggled, so we had a tough time there. But this is 20 years later, so the clover wasn't growing as well. But then we had the wool industry collapsed, and then farmers had, what am I going to do with the land? I've got to put in a crop.
Yeah.
Well, you can't put in a crop because we used to go pasture crop.
Yeah.
Some people did pasture crop.
Or push it.
But now we're going crop because we've got no pasture, because we've got no sheep. People shooting their sheep. I remember.
I do remember.
Yeah, it happened a little bit like that recently with the federal government bringing in a rule to ban exporting of sheep,
Yes.
which caused tremendous pressure and did a lot of damage to a lot of farmers.
Very quick.
Yeah, very sad. But anyway, that was political. This one was, almost political. It was market-driven, trying to force the market to be what it shouldn't be. And so then when they had stubble, how are you going to put your crop into that stubble, because you've got a machine that drags like a root rake, it drags all the stubble. And so then Wayne fortuitously went off to America and ran into these guys while he was doing a bit of study, and he saw the cross-slot seeder. And the cross-slot was a New Zealand invention, but they were using it in Pacific Northwest, in that area there, in the Palouse area. And you could see through 10 tonne of wheat stubble and get a crop up without a problem. So 3 farmers bought those. Yeah. Chris Gilmore's one. Oh, yeah. And I've forgotten the others. Anyway, so this was where we were standing when Ron Jarvis said these will park behind a shed going rusty under a tree, and they served their purpose. They proved that we could do it, but then we revised it and made it do it differently, better. Do it better. But Wayne would present his results, and then Kevin Bly was ringing around the state with knife points, and he would show all these off, and then tungsten came along, and that's one of the bigger interviews we're going to do later. Yeah, all the things had to come together to make it work, but having Wayne growing these high crop yields and then encouraging a lupin rotation, then wheat again. What do you do with the stubble? Lupin stubble wasn't so much a problem, but you still had to chop it up and spread it so that and the stubble, of course, feeds the soil, and that will be a topic of another discussion, was feeding the soil with stubble. Carlos Crevetto wrote a book called Stubble Over the Soil, I think.
Right.
And what he said was that the grain is for man as the stubble or residue is for the soil.
Right, yes.
We take the grain, we give the soil the stubble and protect the soil. And and so with Wayne and I, high yield crops, getting into no-till, all sort of catapulted this revolution of agriculture.
And it was, yeah. And it was a revolution in communication as well. Sharing of that and promoting what you could do. Or
learning from each other.
Yeah. And that was tremendous, yeah. Because I can remember being out in the paddock and thinking, there's 3 years' worth of stubble there. But soon, you can only see 2 years' worth of stubble, and then you can only see 1 year's worth of stubble, because you're building up your microbes. It's all breaking down, and it's beautiful, but it takes time.
Yeah,
you're gonna have sort of.
It's like when you go to another country and eat different food. The first 3 weeks, your stomach feels a bit funny. But after 4 weeks, you don't notice it.
You're okay.
Then when you come home, your normal food is not normal again, because you build up different bacteria bugs in your stomach to eat that different food.
You do. It's exactly what happens, isn't it? Yeah. So if you have a look at here, you've got another, because you're talking, what we're going to be talking about aren't just specific to WA. They're actually international. Global issues. So you're talking about cover crops in Brazil with Canadian agriculture, because you've had experience in these places.
Yeah.
And so they have huge. Can you tell us more about these?
Yeah, well, in 96, I went to Canada and I kicked out of the state, basically, on a job exchange for a year, which was great because I got to mix with Guy Lafond, Doug Dirks and Cindy Grant, a whole range of fantastic Canadian scientists, and they taught me just so much more. So I got to know that environment quite well. They grow our same crops. Instead of growing in winter, of course, they're growing it in summer, because their summers aren't that hot. They've got a few days of 35 or something, but that's towards the end of their summer, and their crops are mostly done by then. So yeah, that was really and because of that experience, farmers, when I came back to WA, farmers said, "Can you take us on a trip to Canada and US?" And so I said, "Yeah, I know a few contacts." So I did that, and then we went to South America and South Africa and Europe and China, and took all these farmers on these tours. And so I got to realise that even Brazil, it's the Mato Grosso region there, it's just tremendously good loamy soil and good rainfall and good temperature, and they're able to grow 2 crops a year, 5 crops in 2 years. And
perfect.
yeah, but the problem there is because their soil is good and loamy, they can get 200 millimetres like Sydney's going to get tomorrow apparently, in one day. And if you've ploughed your soil, then your soil just all will disappear. This whole room will disappear in one afternoon. And then what do they do then? Well, the soil's deep loamy, 40 metres deep. So they get the bulldozer out and they fill in those gullies. And then they plough again, and then they have another erosion event. And, of course, it's gone again. So they said, we're going to have to give up farming if we don't. So they learnt how to do cover crops, and really important for them. Not so important here in WA. There might be a niche here or there, but around the globe, this is interesting. And Canada's got its own interesting issues with the snow in the winter, and the stubble catches more of that snow, and that's good. If your neighbours didn't get into no-till and got rid of his stubble early, all the snow that fell on his place would end up blowing onto your place and catching in your stubble.
Oh, really?
So, and they've had the similar experience with the Dust Bowl in Canada. They've got an area, we've got the Goyder line in South Australia. You don't farm beyond the Goyder line. And you and I farmed on the West Australian Goyder line.
Yeah, we did. We're on the wrong side. It used to be the railway line, apparently. We're both on the east side of the railway line.
Okay. Yeah, well, so, and in Canada, they've got a thing called the Pallisher's Triangle. Anyway, Surveyor General said, this area here, don't go there. It's in Saskatchewan, into Alberta and into Montana. There's a triangle there. They say don't want to farm there, but of course now they can because they've got no tillage and it conserves some moisture. The difference. Yeah. So I'll have a chat with the guy from there.
That'll be amazing. Yeah. But you're even going to try and touch on organic farming challenges, which we have also touched on today.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, it's going to be quite comprehensive, the things that you're going to be talking about. So. What can you tell me about that one?
Well, yeah, we touched on this before about how much copper is in a ton of wheat. Well, in a ton of wheat, how much phosphorus is there? Phosphorus is 3 kilograms of elemental phosphorus, not phosphate, because it's 42% of phosphate is phosphorus. Yeah, so but it's only 3 kilos, this much of phosphorus in a 1 ton of wheat. So if a farmer harvests 10,000 tonnes of wheat, that's a lot of phosphorus. Yes. So we have to put it on.
Have to add to it.
Yeah, and if we don't, it ends up... A friend of mine in Canada would say that, look, it's just mathematics. Agriculture's mathematics. What you put on, what you take off, you've got to put on. Plus probably a little bit more to make sure you don't dip below a dangerous level. So, so we'll talk about that and how some people do that and how, so.
That'd be great. And one of the other things that I really excited me was actually talking about other issues around agriculture. It's not just going to be the farming side. It's a lot of more social context, like being in the Kimberley or being in Africa, which you did yourself.
Yeah.
So it'll be great. Lots and lots of interesting people to interview. Yeah, so what can you tell me? What are some of the ones that you're going to really look forward to?
Well, yeah, my the people that I've respected down through the years, and some of them will have to do online because they're overseas.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll be having Rick Madden in soon. Rick was my mentor, actually. He was an ICI guy, which was a chemical company that was promoting, spray seed, and then he worked in the Department of Agriculture, and I'd ring him up regularly, and so he'll talk about the journey of the more direct drill story before the no-till story came on.
Of course.
Yeah, and we'll interview people that have done a bit of work up in the Kimberley, like you say, with Aboriginal communities, and we'll talk about a bit of sheep activity as well.
Yes.
And they'll probably get Wayne in if he's up to it to talk about the chemistry stuff that he did and his sheep journey as well that he did more recently.
He did too, yeah.
You know, and Wayne was pushing the boundaries constantly and making everyone think. And so hopefully it'll fly for a while. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully people will get something out of it.
Yeah, I hope so. Because it's not going to be just the past; it's also the future of agriculture we're talking about. So we have just talked about the green
changing farming systems.
Farming system,
Yep.
green on green technology
Yep.
and green on brown technology
Yep.
and robotics and so forth.
Yeah.
So, agriculture is so exciting,
Yeah.
even now, and that I'm tired, but it is still such a wonderful, all-encompassing topic.
Always evolving.
Always evolving. What was that quote we read just the other day?
Oh, yeah.
It's just quite an interesting one.
Is that the one I put on my phone?
Yeah, you just put on your phone.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
It was, I asked one guy if he'd come and talk, and he said, I'm not sure that I'm the right person because I don't want to have myself up there in the limelights, whatever. But he said, I think I'm more aligned to Sir Walter Murdoch, who I believe stated, quickly the night wind sweeps us away and the traces of us. We serve the purposes of the day, and if we have served that purpose faithfully, we must be content to be forgotten tomorrow.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's just all about building blocks, isn't it? It's just we're just part of this.
They say we stand on shoulders of those giants that have gone before.
Before us, yeah.
And that's certainly true if you look at the whole society, the cities that we've been able to make and this electronic stuff. Australia, I think, was the first. I think CSIRO invented Wi-Fi and Bluetooth or something.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, scientists and
touch screens.
Yeah, so we build on that, and the funny thing is, if the whole world disappeared and I was the only one left, I couldn't even make a battery. Let alone Wi-Fi. I mean, I could have a crack at a battery, but
you'd need a book.
What if they all got burned?
Oh, no.
It sort of makes you wonder back, where it all started. And I actually went to Turkey back in...
Oh, yes, just recently.
Just to have a look at this boat-shaped thing up in the mountains there to see if I think there's any credibility to that, and that was fun. People want to Google that. William Crabtree, Ark.
William.
William Crabtree, that's right. And that was really fun. But going back there, you see where life really began. It really did begin in the Fertile Crescent.
Oh, yes.
There's no doubt about it. Goblet and all this stuff. There's a lot of evidence of history, and the history is really solid at about 2,500 years BC. Prior to that, a fair bit of it's, I think, a little bit, dubious and made up. But the Goblet supposedly is 10,000 BC or something like that. But, you base stuff on theories and on ideas, and science has got to always be challenged. And I think about the story that in 1944, a group of pilots flew planes from America to the UK to help with the war effort.
Yes.
And they got to Iceland. They're going to refuel, but they couldn't because there was a storm. So instead, they couldn't get to England now, so they had to turn back. And so they belly landed on Greenland. And so 40 years later, these planes are there, and these smart businessmen said, I know where there's some really nice old planes that'd be worth a fortune now. Let's go and get them. Because they'd survived, they two-wayed ahead or whatever, and said, here we are, here's our coordinates. They crash landed six planes or something like that. And they got picked up a week later. But they went to collect them, the planes, and they didn't have sensitive enough equipment to find where they were or how deep they were.
Oh, yeah.
They thought they'd be buried 40 feet, but they weren't. They were buried 288 feet. So they had to go back and get more intense equipment to measure deeper down.
You're talking about under the soil?
Yeah, under the ice.
Really?
The layers, yeah. The layers of snow and then melt and then snow and then melt and then snow and then melt. Technically, they're buried a couple of thousand years deep because the theory is
so much.
You have a winter, then you have a summer, and that's a thaw. Yeah. Right? Well, the reality was when you have a snowstorm, the next day it's a bit warmer and there's a bit of melt.
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea of each of these layers is a year
is wrong.
Is wrong.
Wow. That's amazing.
So all the ice core data that we have, it's really interesting. Now they've actually done a LiDAR of Greenland, and they've found underneath of Greenland there's a massive erosion valley. I've got it on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah, LiDAR image can see through stuff, and I think it's LiDAR, and it shows this valley that's bigger than the Grand Canyon, and you can see the massive erosion underneath there of the water. So the Earth was very different.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Very different. And how long ago was it? Well, according to the ice cores, it's tens, hundreds of thousands. But that's one theory.
That's one theory.
Science has got to always be challenged.
It does indeed.
And this series of broadcasts, we will plan to do that. We will challenge, and when I'm asking the questions, I'm going to ask some tough ones of my friends because I know they can handle it.
Good.
Because iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
It's a great spot to finish on. Thank you, Bill, for your time today.
Thank you, Cathy. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Thanks for watching this episode, brought to you by 4 Farmers.